Hi everyone, I'm Sophie. I work for Academies, a multi-academy trust with schools across the country. I'm not a teacher, but I'm privileged to work with teachers and school leaders as part of my job. As a mum, I found there have been highs and lows of lockdown and home learning, and I think we've all got a newfound or even deeper appreciation of teachers and schools. Throughout the last term, we've been running a home learning advice line for parents, StarLive, and alongside this, a weekly broadcast with a range of experts sharing their ideas to help you keep your kids learning and happy. This week, we're joined by some brilliant head teachers from both primary and secondary school. We're asking them some of the questions we know parents and carers have about the transition from Year 6 at the end of primary school to Year 7 and their children's first steps into secondary school. Any transition causes some anxiety, whether it's starting school, moving school, or for those of you with older children, leaving home. But we know this transition is an important one, and one which could feel quite different due to the restrictions in place because of coronavirus. To start with, I'm going to ask Rebecca KIRK, a head teacher from Norwich Primary School in the East Midlands, part of the Inspiration Trust, and a vice principal, Janetta Liebird, from the Nine Styles Academy, part of the Summit Learning Trust in Birmingham, to tell us about how secondary school will look and feel due to the restrictions and how this might feel different to primary school.
So at primary school, what you've been used to over the last month has been very small bubbles of up to 15 children in a class. And I think come September, that will change. High schools are much bigger. So you've got 240 children, up to 240 children in my local high school in a year group. And you're going to be able to mix with those children, and you're going to be able to see more teachers as well, because at primary school, you have one teacher delivering all your lessons, whereas at secondary school, you're going to have, your maths teacher, your English teacher, and lots more people to get lots of support from. One of the benefits actually of the pandemic is that it's unlikely that you'll be able to mix with the older children. So actually, it'll be all Year 7 children all together, and spending a lot more time getting used to the school. You're not going to be surrounded by Year 11s who might come across a little bit more scary than other Year 7s. So it's a real benefit as well. The similarities are still going to be the same. So things like playtime and spending time with your friends at lunch, that's all going to be exactly the same. So you'll have a real opportunity to get to know the teachers, to get to know other children in the school, make some great friends. I know from the local schools that I work with that there are lots of plans in place for extra support for children. So teachers and pastoral staff will be on hand to make sure that children who have worries, parents who have worries, have someone to answer their questions, and to make sure that they feel happy and confident going into school. One of our biggest challenges as head teachers in any setting is making sure that our children are happy and confident at this time.
I think the first thing to say to parents out there is that, as teachers, we totally understand what primary school students coming into secondary students may be experiencing. It is going to be a time of anxiety, and we're preparing for that. We want them to feel at home within the setting, their new setting, and the school will take every action necessary to ensure that when they come in, they know that they will have staff that they can speak to, they know that they will have a form tutor that they can always refer to, and also that there'll always be a helping hand around. It's really important that parents recognise that we know how difficult it will be for the students, and therefore we have set in place procedures that will really help them to understand all that is required of them. And in a sense, it's going to be a great opportunity, because they're going to be in bubbles of their own year group, to get to know new students, to get to know their staff really well, to spend social time at break and lunch times together, and have a really wonderful, smooth transition, as opposed to being introduced to a massive school, perhaps, where there are lots of children in different year groups.
Thank you both. That's really helpful and interesting to hear that there are even some silver linings of the current situation, in the sense that secondary school might feel a bit more like primary school to start with in September. We know another question parents and carers are asking about is how secondary schools will know what new Year 7 children can do without SATs results this year. I'm going to ask NICOLA Palmer from Hyndburn Academy, a secondary school in Lancashire, a United Learning Trust school, and Dawn FORSHAW, who supports transition at Star Academies and until recently was a primary head teacher in Preston, to tell us a bit more about this.
I think there are 2 or 3 things that we need to look at here. The first is that normally when students come from primary school, aside from the SATs results, schools give teacher assessments to high schools and secondary schools, so that the teachers are already, a bit like teachers have had to do for GCSEs actually this year, they give their feel on what a child can do, because obviously they've been in front of them a lot longer than what some of the SATs results might suggest. So lots of schools, primary schools, have still sent those teacher assessments to give high schools some idea of what a child is capable of. The second thing is that, you know, as secondary schools, we do spend quite a lot of time in those first 5 or 6 weeks of secondary school, making our own assumptions and decisions on what we think children can do, because not all children traditionally are very good at taking exams because they're so young and they get anxious and they might not have their best day. So what most secondary schools will do is they will find a way of still doing their own assessments. Now, that isn't to send you results, etc. That's so that the school know exactly what your children are capable of, and particularly looking forward into schools that stream children, or if they're looking for gaps in understanding, or they just want to know what they can do. So I think it will be a mixture of the teacher assessments that schools send through, and also that they will have been in conversation, hopefully, with Year 6 teachers anyway, because that has still, for lots of schools, has still happened. But also, when they get to school, there will be what we call some baseline assessments. But again, don't worry about them. They are just an opportunity for the high school to kind of put their own marker down for what children can do, so that they can best support them moving forward.
Yes, I'm sure that this is a question that lots of parents will be concerned about this year in particular. I would reassure parents that the end of Key Stage 2 SATs assessments capture what a child can do on that day. Sometimes that's an accurate reflection of what they can do, and sometimes it's not so accurate. And actually, the fact that the SATs assessments have not taken place this year may be something of a blessing, because teachers' evaluations will be even more important than normal. In schools, teachers are constantly assessing what pupils can do and where they need more practice to master something. And all of this information will be passed on to the secondary schools. Throughout Year 6, so since they started in Year 6 back in September, the pupils will have been doing a number of mock SATs, so past papers. And teachers will have considered these scores that the children achieved on those papers, as well as what they were doing in class. And they will use those scores and what they know about the child to predict whether they would have achieved the expected standard at the end of Year 6, whether they would still be working towards a standard, or whether indeed they would be likely to be working at a greater depth within the expected standard. So all of that information will be passed on. In addition, teachers will provide information to the secondary schools about other things that your child likes doing, is very good at, and whether they are an independent learner, whether they're a confident learner, and all that sort of information.
Thanks, Dawn and Nicola, for that. It's good to hear that teachers that have known children since last September will be in communication with the new school to pass on what they know about them, and that secondary schools are planning for ways to check on understanding and learning in the new year. Our last question is about how parents and carers can help children who may be feeling anxious over the summer. I've put this to Rebecca from Norwich Primary and MAJID DITTA, a head teacher from a Star Academies secondary school in Blackburn, who was previously also a primary head teacher, so knows about preparing children for transition from both sides.
So any transition period is going to be an anxious time for any child, regardless of whether there's a pandemic or not. So I think one of the important things you can do is to stress that, you know, everybody's feeling the same. Everyone's in the same position, that all children in Year 6 across the country are going to be worried about what it's like to go to high school. every year that happens. So talk to your child, see how they're feeling, ask them if they've got any questions about what it might be like to go to high school, and talk through maybe what the school day will be like. I know lots of high school websites have information about what the school day is like, as well as the curriculum, what they might be learning. So you might want to have a quick look through the website with your child and show them all about it. Another really lovely thing that I've been suggesting to some of my parents that they do with their children is walk through the day with them. Maybe walk them to high school, show them the route they're going to be taking to school, so it doesn't feel so different when they start in September. Also, if your high school has sent out any learning packs, so I know my trust and local high schools have sent out summer learning packs, have a go at the work with your child, support them with the information that they're learning about, and make sure that they feel that they're showing the high school the best they can be, and showing off all their skills, which I'm sure they have lots of. And maybe even get your child to write a little letter to their form tutor come September, telling them a little bit about themselves, so that when September arrives, the teachers have got as much information as they can, and your child feels reassured that the school will be looking after them.
I think it's very important for parents to know that they are not alone, and universally up and down the country, all of the primary schools are in the same position, and the secondary schools are very, very, very aware that we are taking in children this year who have not had their normal diet, and so therefore the personal development, well-being, mental health, and all of that is a real consideration for us at the secondary schools to plan for, to make sure that each and every child is ready. Just finishing off, I would say it's really important that as a parent, you know what contact details you need to have and what are the opening hours or the school kind of office hours over the summer period. So if it gets to a stage where you feel that you are not able to support your child any further, then you are not alone. You must contact the school and see if they can give you any advice and information which can help you get through, because it's very important that all children are feeling as reassured as possible before they start in September.
Thanks both. It's helpful to hear some ideas on what parents can do, and also to be reassured that schools are preparing to support children with this transition. It's good to know that parents can contact the school if they're concerned. While it is of course the summer holidays, it's always worth sending an email, as it will be picked up. Lots of staff will be in school, particularly during exam results week around the 20th of August and in the week before term starts. Thank you to all of the school leaders who shared their ideas with us this week. Now that it's the summer holiday, you can still contact StarLine on Facebook and visit our website, where there are lots of useful blogs and all of our previous StarLive episodes, but the phone line is now closed. We're really pleased to have been part of the response to the pandemic and have felt privileged to support so many parents and carers at this challenging time. Next week, we're inviting head teachers back to share their ideas on supporting teenagers to prepare for receiving exam results when they haven't taken exams. We look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, stay safe.